I got to say, before I start talking about Veritech and revenue management, again, Lance, thank you so much for inviting me to participate. Really appreciate this. And a very big thank you to David, by the way, because he and his group tend to work behind the scenes. And when they get to going near the front, it's probably not a good thing. But our technical team and David's team have worked so well together over the last few months that I just need to start off by saying thank you very much. And please make sure that you extend my appreciation and Veritech's appreciation to everybody on your team. Veritech's integration with Tenant Hummingbird is relatively new. We're about a month and a half into it, and we now have companies that are beginning to migrate to the PMS. And I say Veritech has always been very appreciative of the fact that there have been times when we've had a number of our clients said, we'd like to switch to a different PMS. We won't do it until they're integrated with Veritech. That's how important revenue management and pricing capabilities have been to those companies. And what I think is also kind of exciting is the type of capabilities that Veritech makes available to operators. Some would say they're on par with what the REITs are doing. Personally, I think it's a lot further ahead than what some of the REITs are doing. So we put the power of data-driven capabilities, and I'll talk in a moment about a few of these, into the hands of small, moderate, and even larger operators that might not have the wherewithal, the financial wherewithal, to invest $1 million or $2 million in developing their own system. All right? So, with all of that said, let me give you a feeling for what this integration with Veritech and Hummingbird Tenant is all about. And quite frankly, I think we're on the beginnings of where we don't even know exactly where it's going to go. Okay? The capabilities of the PMS are so great, and we're learning about that even as we talk, that there are things that we can't do with other PMSs that we're going to be able to do in the future with Hummingbird, and I think you'll begin to see some of that today. Let me give you an example. Okay? There are 3 primary areas that the Veritech revenue management system provides guidance on. What should you charge for your new move-ins? How much should you increase the rents of your existing customers? And we're going to talk about that in a moment because we have a very different approach than is the traditional approach in the industry. And the third one, where we have actually a patent pending, is something that's been called value pricing or good, better, best pricing. And what we've done with this is we've introduced a dynamic and automated way to take what the industry often implemented in a static fashion and improve on it. So what we've done is, let's pretend for the moment that you have 50 10 by 10 ground floor climate controlled units. Okay? You all know that, you know what? You have 3 or 5 of these units, maybe 8, that are near the office, that are really well positioned. And historically, you might have taken those 3, 5, or 8 units, put them in a separate unit group, and charged a higher price for them. But then when you were sold out of those, you're not in the game of moving extra units into that and whatever it is. So you started selling all your other 10 by 10s at whatever price you were selling them for. With our system, we actually don't require you to take those really convenient 10 by 10s and separate them out into a separate unit group, which first of all improves your reporting because now you're looking at your 10 by 10s as a whole as opposed to separate groups. Then what we do in our system is we will track which units are more convenient, and we can actually then behind the scenes identify this is the most convenient available unit. It's going to have a higher price than the unit that is much less convenient. And typically we find that 3 prices work very, very well. And at the beginning of COVID, there was a big push to begin putting this kind of capability on the internet. And what we have found in the last couple of years is roughly 40% of the people. Think about it. 40% of the people who make an online reservation or online rental will choose to spend more by selecting one of the more expensive, more convenient units.
We're seeing that right out of the gate too. Like literally, that's the number.
It's incredible. And I had the president of one operator call me. Actually, this one was based in Canada. And he said, Oren, I want you to think about this. These are people we haven't spoken to. And on average, they're giving us 12 to 16% more money to get a more convenient unit. And currently, the PMSs don't even have a very strong way of describing the convenience. It might be closer to the elevator. Life Storage has something where they actually have their own PMS and they will talk about 150 feet to the elevator or 100 feet or 300 feet. Yeah. So it gives specifics. But I anticipate, and Lance will stop me if I go too far, but I anticipate that the integration between us and Humminbird is going to start putting much more in the hands of the operator for differentiation and taking advantage of attributes that doesn't exist in any other PMS in the world.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Is that?
Yeah.
Good. So that's just one example, very exciting example, because on average, that particular dynamic capability, depending on how it's implemented, can lead anywhere from about 4% to about 9 or 10% incremental revenue from move-ins. And who gets the 4%? The 4% of the operators who actually don't want to train their employees. They don't care. They're so happy to get something extra. They just implement it. And the 9 or 10% are from the operators who actually want to maximize their revenues. And they do more training of employees. They look at the data-driven upgrade statistics. They do spend some time thinking about how to make that program more effective. And so operators find where they want to be. So I know I've only got a couple more minutes, I think. So let me quickly
You're going to stay on because I'd like you to commentate on things that you're going to see.
All right. So let me hit on rent increases for a minute. Okay. The traditional way that operators have thought about rent increases, okay, and if you don't agree with me, please, during discussion, tell me. But what we've seen is for many operators, they say, you know what, we want to increase our revenues by 6%, 8%. You pick your number, and everyone gets an X% rent increase. And then they review the leases and they say, well, let's give this one a little bit more. Let's give this one a little bit less for customer service reasons, whatever it is. They start with a number and then they make their adjustments. We flip that process on its head. We look for reasons why somebody should have a small increase or a large increase. And then the override process begins. And what we found by doing that is because you're better able to identify early on who should not get a rent increase and who should get not get an aggressive rent increase and who should, two things happen. And they seem inconsistent at first. You get a higher average effective rent increase, generally, and it varies by company, but I'll say by about 1.5, 2 percentage points. And at the same time, the churn is lower. You get fewer move-outs. Now, if you think, wait a minute, how is it that you get a higher rent increase on average, but lower move-outs? And the answer is because by having the right data-driven system in place in the beginning, you're better able to identify who you should not be giving a large rent increase. And the easy way to think about it is people who are paying a lot more than street rate and you've got a lot of vacancies, you want to be kind of cautious about those people, because if they move out, it's going to be hard to fill them, and certainly going to be hard to fill them at the rate that they're paying. If you start tacking on other conditions, like, is this their first rent increase? Are they on auto pay? A few others, you begin to be able to, in a data-driven manner, find the folks who you want to be cautious with, find the folks you do not want to be cautious with, and can afford to be more aggressive on their rent increases. So a lot of that, I would say there are some places where they will think about using demographic information, zip code information for thinking about that. I will tell you that as a philosophy, Veritech has stayed away from that. Why? In our experience, and this has not happened in self-storage, it has happened in some travel industries that we've worked with. If you do an action that is zip code based or has other, call it personal identifiable information or certain other demographics, you better damn well be careful that you don't do anything that any group thinks that there is a racial, a gender, an ethnic connection to it. Because then you set yourself up for a lawsuit. And we just never want to be the cause of that. So much so that, in fact, if you remember at COVID, we began to introduce in our system the ability to make sure that if you were doing rent or price increases, it stayed within 10% or whatever the local state law was, because there were limits that were local. And if you had 20 stores in 5 different states, it could be very difficult to pay attention and know how much each state was requiring you to make sure you did not exceed your price increases or rent increases on. And so we introduced that kind of capability into the system to provide guidance, which was especially helpful to companies with operations in multiple states. I know I've spoken for about 15 minutes or so. I can stop here. I'm going to look for guidance.
Yeah, you're going to let us get into the foundational piece here, and everybody is open for questions here, including everybody in the panel, and I'm sure I'll have some back and forth with the presenters. So let's get started. And the first thing we're going to start is, this project started so long ago, we called it Project Pitt. This was way before, 3 to 4 years before we decided to build a property management system. And we were trying to I don't want to say gamify, we were trying to game the PMS systems into giving us data. The APIs were so crappy, or they didn't exist, we couldn't do it. And so we were trying to figure out, how do we build middleware to bring value to the e-commerce side, because that's where our heart was at the time, and it still very much is serving our customer the best. And what we could never get were the features and the amenities, right? There was sometimes a laundry list in a PMS, but when I say that, what I mean is, how do I know every space in your inventory and every feature and amenity that's related to that space, down to whether it's got a fire sprinkler or an LED light, a hallway, a roll-up door, an electronic lock, a Nokia product, a swing door, second level, elevator, stair, whatever, right? And so we did this Project Pitt. At the time, it was named after Brad Pitt, and he was the Trojan horse, right, in Troy. And so we built this application. It massively failed because the APIs kept failing. We were trying to pull down data and then layer over this data. It failed. But that project gave us the foundation and the know-how to manage that process, because we're going to show you stuff that you're going to go, oh my God, this looks like a lot of work and this is hard setup. This is not a zero training deal that we're going to show you. But we're going to be talking about remote management. Remember I said we're going to bounce around? if you want systems to help you do things like Warren's system or some of the systems we're going to show you to run 24 hours a day, day and night, 7 days a week, and not, be showing up sick, you have to put a certain amount of work up front. There's no cheating. It's like physics, right? You just don't buy an application that automatically runs your business for you without some work. So the first foundational layer, Sneha, is going to show us is features and amenities. Sounds so basic. One of the most complicated things in the industry to get right. And it's not a matter of just getting it right. How do they differ in your product type? How do they differ in your store? I have RV parking at a lot of my storage facilities. Is it the same set of feature and amenities that are going to matter to the person renting a space to park a boat, vehicle, RV, whatever, as to renting a 10 by 10 space? No. So how do you start to differentiate between all of your space types? It's kind of a complicated problem, and we're going to show you how we do that. How do we allow you, as the real estate professional within your market that knows your customer, to select the features and amenities that you think are going to be most valuable to a customer making a buying decision, and do that dynamically? And all the time, like we have two screens here because we're going to be showing a mobile device over there and a desktop over here. And all the time, the 80% of your customers are making the decision on a 3.5-inch screen. So now comes even a little more important, right? When are you going to feed up the right elements that's going to trigger a buy or an action or a move forward or a selection? And then how are you going to layer that in a step deeper? Then how are you going to layer that in one step deeper all on that phone and hopefully guide somebody to the space that creates the greatest margin for us? So Sneha, why don't you show us, tell us what site you're on. This is a live site. Tell us who you're on and what you're going to do here. And Travis, since she's going to break your stuff, why don't you show her what and where to break?
So this is news to my team that I'm totally playing with our store now. But the good news is, if we don't like it, we can just as easily change it back. Which is part of the flexibility of the system. So as I look at this features and amenities, and this is a new thing that's been recently turned on, so it's not the most comprehensive list. But there are some things that I'd like to tweak on here. At my facility, one of the key pieces, and before we had any kind of value pricing solutions, we did our pricing based on the proximity to the elevator. And we kind of, as Lance said, hacked our way into being able to show closer, and closest units. And that was about all of the characters that we had to use to describe the unit. So we've been using closer, and closest. Now we can tweak on this a little bit. So Sneha, show them the proximity to the elevator. So that's the feature and amenity now. That's how close are you to the elevator. And instead of doing closer, and closest, in order to get it to show up on the website, we can now have a yes or no box, or it can be multiple options of close to the elevator. Look at all those characters. Closer to the elevator and closest to the elevator. So that on my website, when a customer is on the site, they have a better understanding of what I was trying to say 3 years ago about closer, and closest.
Right. And Warren, we've spread out our features and amenities in first of all, we have identified features and amenities separately, and I want to talk about that really quick because it's an important structural part of this system. A feature is inherently built into your real estate. It's an elevator, it's a stairwell, it's a climate control system, it's a ground level, basement, whatever, below ground. That's baked into the cake. An amenity is an element that can be there or not be there. Take cash, don't take cash. Speak Spanish, don't speak Spanish. Have moving cards, don't have moving cards. Right? Those are amenities, your access hours. The thing that's unique is we can value amenities. Not today. We can organize amenities today. What's in the process is you can value amenities. That's a big, big statement, a lot of foundational work. The amenities here, though, you'll see, he said it has this yes, no. In the tech world, that's called Boolean, right? It's a yes or no. Climate control is a perfect example. Yes or no. This particular situation here, you can create multiple options within a category. Because sometimes there are multiple options. There's multiple options in the types of locks that you have, right? Of course you have locks. Do you have cylinder locks? Do you have Noki locks? Do you have electronic locks? Do you have, disc locks? Whatever you want. That's customizable. So you can match your real estate perfectly with these tools. But one more thing here. One of the projects that I did years ago, this is a long time ago, none of you ever saw this thing. I got so sick of everybody calling Sparefoot an aggregator. I'm like, you guys, it's a directory. I'll build an aggregator. So I built a thing called Space Picker for the hell of it. And I scraped 12,000 spaces every single day, and I did it for about a year. And it was just a toy, really. But you know what I did? I scraped off of those 12,000 spaces, 12,000 stores, not spaces, 12,000 stores every day. I pulled down all of their inventory. And I captured all the features and amenities. And there were like 1,300, right? Which was insane because there were all sorts of crazy stuff. I was able to distill that list down and keep it in my back pocket for a day like today to where we could start to standardize the features and amenities, but still allow some custom functionality. If any of you want to put a helicopter landing pad on top of your building, we can do it. It's just not in the prepackaged piece. But Sneha will show you that prepackaged set of features and amenities, so how quickly you can look at your store and go, yep, I got that, and build your deal. And you're going to see, we're not going to build this whole thing here, but you'll see we're going to go to a store that is built out, so you'll see what that looks like on a built out. So go ahead, Travis.
So if you close out of that, there's two more changes that we'll make for the sake of today and for this part. Number one, let's go edit the lock feature. So you can see on the default, it's electronic door lock. And I actually don't love that as a description for what it is that we have at this facility. This facility is 100% Noki Smart Entry. Noki Smart Entry means something to self-storage operators. Doesn't mean anything to my customer necessarily. I want to change that to say smartphone unit access. So that because what I'm doing here is I'm speaking to my customer. So I'd like to change that to smartphone unit access.
Okay, to do that, I'm just going to go add another option in here as smartphone unit access. Once I select next, it asks me for the default, and I'm going to put in the default as smartphone unit access and save it. Now what this does is this feature and the value for that feature is now saved here, but I have to go in and assign that value to all the spaces just to make sure that feature is associated with the spaces. To do that, I just go to spaces. And Travis, you mentioned this is for all your spaces?
Yeah, so in this case, it's 100% of the units are smartphone unit access.
Okay, so then I just select bulk editing, select all the spaces, And you can see here as I select the number of spaces.
Yeah, she's up to 250 at 637.
Now, by the way, what she's doing here is something we call the 51% rule. This was our lesson back in Project Pit. Because most of your features and amenities at your sites hit the 51% rule. And most of your features hit the 90% rule. Meaning, are you all roll-up door? Yeah, but upstairs in that one thing I have some swing doors. Okay, roll-up door is the default. Now you've gotten 95% of your building. Are you all climate control? No, I'm mostly not climate control. So that wouldn't be the 51% rule. And what makes that super fast is that once you pick your features and amenities that you have in your store and then assign them, then you come in and override on the 51% to make those changes. And that's how in a very short period of time, once you learn the system, you will have every feature and amenity to every space in the inventory. That's never been done before. Then making that dynamically accessible and using it for multiple tools that you're going to see here in a second is really powerful. Because right now he's kind of talking about his website. What about your reports? What about your rate management? What about your rent management? What about giving that access to Warren to be able to value those elements for every space, knowing that this customer is coming up for a rent raise and this is everything that's associated with them.
Now, since I've selected all the spaces, I can assign the feature, which is lock and smartphone unit access, to that. By selecting apply, it applies that selection or that feature to all my spaces. Now, this is, so I can shift this around and I can see that all my spaces now say smartphone unit access as a feature and an amenity. I'll just reload it. There. And this is how you can assign your features and amenities to each group of your spaces.
Sneha, how would you go in and shop in the features and amenities to set up a store from the ground up?
So every store comes with a predefined features. That's in this list here. You see, this is like all predefined features. And the reason for this is to maintain consistency. We didn't want someone to call a feature climate control and then on another store climate controlled. So just to maintain consistency, to ensure the data is correct, we put in predefined features and amenities. But if you do have a feature or amenity that is not on this list, you can create your own custom feature and amenity and assign values to it.
So part of that, and we actually encourage you to try to live within most of those selections, because some of them are actually within Google's framework, right? Like they don't understand Frosty Freezy for climate-controlled spaces. So as you're going to start presenting data to people or systems that are crawling your site, you may want to think about not getting too creative. But if there is something like, in this case, they could give a crap whether it's a cylinder lock or disc lock, and you want to present that to your customer in the example that you just used, it's a great use of the customization. Or you have something so specialized at your facility that it's not in the system, you can put it in there. And this is the foundational building block. You're going to see as we go on what these layers do. Correct?
Yeah. And Travis, does this look good, or do you want to make any more adjustments?
We could add one, but for time's sake, we might just move on.
Okay.
More than one. But we've only got so much real estate on the website too, and that's something to remember.
Right. And Sneha, do you have you don't have Reno open there right now, or do you?
I do.
You do have Reno open. So can you go ahead and pull open the features and amenities and how that's built out? So this is a site that has been built out, and you'll see these features and amenities are complete for this property, and they all basically live within that ecosystem. But you're also going to see that they are organized in a certain fashion, and you're going to see that over and over again. You're all familiar with that little icon on the left that you can drag that. So once you have that all done, if you want to simply reprioritize elements for either reporting purposes or revenue management, rate, rent, or web, this is the tool that you'll use, and it will reprioritize those functions. And a real-world example of that would be the occupancy statistics report, right? It's in the industry, it's the one worthless report for the most part. Our competitors' occupancy statistics reports are practically worthless, with one exception: the bank asks for it, right? Your lenders ask for it. But go into a SiteLink occupancy statistics report and try to make sense of it. Unless you have a perfect facility that's all 5x5s, all 10x10s, right? And it's very equal. You can get some information out of it.
There we go.
This system, right, uses the same methodology to build your occupancy statistics report, of which are you gonna demo the report that we built last night, or are you gonna build one?
I'm going to build a space group for Travis.
All right. So this is what we call space groups. And I know this sounds dry, but when all of a sudden we pop that website and you see what this does, I think you'll sit up. Or when you see these reports. So go ahead, Snehan. Let's create a space group for this property.
Now, the purpose of space group is, it's again up to you. How do you want to see your spaces in a report? How do you want to see your spaces in rate management? Do you want to group them by the floor or the type of doors? Do you want to group them by the access, by the lock? So those are the differentiating factors that you can use, and those factors help you in creating your space grouping.
Including your storage types.
Yeah, so it's no longer just my 5x5s, my 5x10s, my 10x10s. It's my 5x5s with this feature and my 5x5s without, or my 10x10s that are closer to the elevator and my 10x10s and my 5x10s that are further away from the elevator. You can treat all of your unit sizes separately by feature and amenity. So that's what Sneha is going to do here.
I'm going to create a space group and name it my space group. So Travis, what are the features that you would want to see in your space group?
For this facility, let's just do the proximity to the elevator.
Okay, the floor?
Sure.
Okay.
So that's 2. You can do up to 4 in here, which is a lot when you start thinking about breaking apart your real estate. Or you can simplify it. This particular facility I've been to, it's a box. It's all climate controlled. It's all high quality. The whole building is.
Yeah, there's not a lot that I've got some units that have this and some units don't. So I don't break this down between my air conditioned units and non-air conditioned because they're all air conditioned. Or smart units versus dumb units, they're all smart units. So, but for many facilities, you've got a building A that's air conditioned and B, C, D, E, and F are all outdoor single story drive up. And so you're going to want to break those up differently. But for this facility, how close you are to the elevator and what floor you're on are kind of the most important points for a customer.
So now Sneha has created a space group, and she has a next choice, which is interesting. This is another hole in the marketplace. This has been a problem from day one, and the RevMan guys have had to screw with this forever because they've been saddled with this problem. In that this particular store is is pretty clean, meaning 5x5s, 10, 5x10s, 10x10s. But then you'll take a store like we're going to show Reno, which was a conversion just recently done, but because of the constraints within the box, we got a lot of oddball sizes. So when you have oddball sizes, what do you do with those from the perspective of looking at data? You can't do anything if you have a 9.5 by 11, you have one of them. It's fully occupied or it's fully vacant. How does any system push or make any sort of determination on that? So you'll see that we have this tier area, which gives you the ability to capture the oddballs and have enough data within those sets to make a determination. If you have a super clean building, just bang the group by size and go. But a lot of us don't have the super clean building. We have those oddball sizes. That's been one of the huge limitations in the reports that are in the industry, because you can't do anything with that data if you got 1, 2, or 3 spaces. It's worthless. Doesn't tell you anything.
So, like Lance said, this is a pretty clean unit mix, and so for this report, we'll just group it by size.
Okay.
Warren, how long ago did you have to figure out tiering?
So we actually, because we're so focused on pricing, what we ended up doing was building far more flexibility in our system than the PMSs typically would allow for. That's why this is kind of nice. So we actually, I'm going to describe it. We control things, if we will. Every unit gets assigned to what we call a price type. Mm-hmm. And there's a price type identifier, so that if you had like 2 10 by 11s, for pricing purposes, you could group it with the 10 by 10s, and then that goes exactly to the tiering where you might rank those as the most desirable.
Exactly.
And then to kind of Lance's point here, once you can start grouping your odd sizes with your normal sizes, the sales process becomes different, and it's easier to sell and more direct to sell the odd sizes. So the occupancy goes up typically on the odd sizes, as well as you get the price premium for, call it the 10 by 11. So there's like a double effect on that this type of flexibility starts allowing for it. It's pretty cool.
So by Sneha doing that, she automatically created, I think, 17 sections of product there. So the system automatically did that, right? You don't have to go and create that. You can choose your filters and your types of sizing, and instantly you now have this group as to what you can do multiple things with. And you can do it with storage, you can do it with parking, do it separately. Like in Reno, I'm tiered on the storage side of the shop, and I'm sized on the RV side, because the RV stuff is all pretty, 10 by 40s and 10 by 30s or 12 bys or whatever they are there, right? It's pretty even. So I can size on that, tier on this. That flexibility doesn't exist anywhere. And when you're getting into rent rate reporting, it's really important as well to the customer. So Sneha, how would we turn this now into a occupancy statistics report?
Yes, but before I go to the occupancy statistics report, one thing, as I went through the different groups, I did see some inconsistencies. Like there is a basement floor and there is a 0.
Yeah.
So this also helps you identify like your data inconsistencies, and you can use this to go and fix that. So for example, here it shows there are 2 spaces that are assigned to 0 floor, when we also have a basement floor. So what I would do is I would go into features and amenities.
So essentially they're misnamed.
Yeah.
Because our basement is the 0 level.
And there is one that says 2 instead of second.
Second floor.
So I can just click on this, go to features and amenities, edit it, floor second, save it. And similarly, let me just refresh it. Okay, all looks right. see. Yep. Okay. Now to create a report, I just go into the report section, occupancy report, occupancy statistics report, choose the property, and then choose my grouping profile, which in this case is my space group, and then select run a report. For the sake of time, I had already generated that report, and this is an example of that report.
So Travis saw this for the first time at his facility last night.
Yeah.
What did you take away as soon as you saw this?
Well, I immediately started looking, at my rent per square foot across the various categories and floors. And the occupancies on the cheaper units were higher than my most expensive units, as we would expect, and I'm aggressive on my most valuable units. So none of it was necessarily a surprise, but it was a very easy way to be able to kind of verify my knee-jerk, and that was my vacant units at this facility are my most expensive units. And so I can then either choose to adjust or not adjust. At 95% occupancy, I'm not as inclined to be too desperate about chasing occupancy. But at a facility that's 85%, takes us to the whole RevMan discussion and some of the features that are, I don't know when we're going to get into that, but that I could turn on, like we've done for Reno, to be able to adjust pricing automatically.
Okay. So this is typically a very difficult thing to do, and it sounds difficult today because we've been building these layers. But once you have all of that into your inventory, you can see now how quickly you can start to build on with these tools, and how you could bring things to either your staff's hands or to your customers' fingertips on their phone. So now, what do you want to move into next? Do you want to go into the value?
The rate management, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to move on these layers to the rate management tool. And you're going to do that on this one or on Reno?
I can do it on any.
Whatever you want.
Okay.
We can break it all.
Okay.
And now it's where it gets scary, because now we're changing prices.
Okay, so now I'm going to turn on the space group that I created and use that for rate management at this property. So I select the space group.
By the way, guys, you see that button? That's the Warren button right there. You see where it says Enable Rate Management? If Warren's operating your levers, you throw that one to the left, okay? Then he's driving, right? Veritex running the show. So that's part of the control in here, right? We want this open platform so that if you want to use a service, this is one of the steps in that.
I'll select the rate management tab, and I can see all the groups that I created in here. And now I can go in and create a rate plan. So Travis, what rate plan would you like to create today?
All right, what are we doing? You see the story where 94% occupancy. All right, high occupancy rate plan. There we go.
Do you want it $1 or a percentage change?
Percentage.
Okay. And how do you want to set it up?
So when you're building these rate plans, you don't have to do it for 0 to 100. I mean, we could build this to just be, okay, this is a high occupancy rate plan. So if the occupancy is, we could get detailed with this. If
Well,
the occupancy is 90 to 91, I want you to do this. If the occupancy is 91.1 to 92, I want you to do this. We can zero in as much as we want. We're not going to do that for the purposes of.
You can also do that on your storage types. Do you want different plans on your RV? I would argue for the last 5 years for sure, right? But you can then manage your RV differently, or you may decide to manage your large spaces. You may say everything above 10 by 15 and above, I want to go dollar, and everything below, I want to go percentage, or however you want to do that, because once you have these cards in your deck, then you just deal them out to your groups at all of your stores. So you create these cards, and then you play them where you want. You can build ones particularly for lease-up properties. You may build one for a property you just acquired, and you acquired it, and it's way under market. So you're going to have a very different looking plan to move that store to where you think it should be really quickly. So these cards live there, then you assign them to your inventory or your groups. So lots of control here.
So if occupancy is greater than 0, we pull that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to actually we're going to add a threshold.
Okay.
So if occupancy is greater than 91%, we're going to raise the rate by 9%.
Okay.
Kind of a classic scenario. We are going to round it. So I'll go down to the rounding, round up a $0.50. So the nearest 50 cents. Now, we could take this and go, if occupancy is above 85%, I only want to raise them 6%. And anything you can think of in between there. What I'm trying to communicate is this is more flexibility than we're used to as self-storage operators. So let's just save that as is.
Okay.
For demonstration purposes.
And now you have a card, and you can fill up your portfolio with as many cards as you want. If you have a big portfolio, you probably have a lot of different cards that you can choose from, right? So you've got a lot of flexibility there. Now we have some different names, and I wasn't infringing on you when I talk about value pricing. You just sort of coined it, and I'm using it. So if that gets trademarked, we'll come up with something else. But what we do is we talk about a set rate. That's the rate that you set. You buy a new store or you build a new store, and you come into a market and you go, it's a $100 market, right? And that's what you set your prices in. Then we have a term that we call sell, which is it's what you're selling that space at that particular time. This impacts the sell. This will push up or down your set rate based on the conditions that you choose. Then when we get into the next section here, we have the offer. The offer then plays with the sell. And we'll show you real world data how that's working, what it looks like online, and actually show you the results in the reports. So that's where it starts getting kind of interesting, because your set rates may be 100, and maybe your rate system pumped it up and you got an extra $10 or something, and then your offer rate maybe got an extra 10 there. You were 20 above your set. That's a good thing. That's a good rental. So set, sell, and offer. Those are the elements that you're going to see today.
Now, once you've created your card, you can put this as a default plan for all your space groups, or you could create different plans for different space groups.
Right.
An example is on Reno, on Store Local Reno, which is already set up. There are 2 cards, one for parking, one for storage. And those cards are set by those space groups for parking and storage.
And you can deactivate those too if you need to. Maybe you get into an emergency pause with a, well, this store got it, right? Nevada was a whole statewide deal during COVID. So you can deactivate those, or you can leave them active. You know, maybe something's going on in that store and you don't want to affect that particular group.
Or with the Dove Mountain example and the close, closer, and closest, I could set up 3 different cards and treat each of those groups differently.
Yeah.
And so the closest being my most valuable units, I'm going to push higher and harder on those units than I am on my close units. And so I can set those 3 different cards, and so those units are all treated differently.
And that's what his occupancy statistics report pointed out last night when we turned it live on his site. That's really what it indicated to do. Set up close, closer, closest pricing, and on the floors. Because your basement was stronger than your upper levels, not as strong as the ground. There was a clear differentiation between them. So he could set those cards up and deal them out to those spaces.
Now, setting this as default would set it for all the space groups at Dove Mountain. And the prices, the sell rate, takes into account only at midnight. We don't do it immediately. We do it at midnight, just so that in case you want to make changes, you have time to make those changes.
So you can have second thoughts.
And with that, we can go into value pricing.
So, Lynn, should we take a break here?
Yeah, let's.
We're right at this.
Yeah,
scheduled break.
let's take a break and then get into value, because then we get to get into what it does. And particularly the operators that have been around longer, and you're like, oh my God, like I'm going to spend 50 cents for that. I can't do that. Well, look at the outcome, because we're going to show outcomes in what we're doing, and these guys are playing at a higher level than what we're doing in this system, right? So if you think about, like we're going to show an example here in live data of a rental that just happened that has a $600 value increase on a single rental with some revenue management tools, not at the sophistication of this company, right? So it's so critical that all of you are trying to move to reduced staffing, whether you want to call it just a reduction in staffing. Public storage is leading the way there. By the way, you know, sometimes that company does some pretty progressive stuff. They're kicking the REITs' butts right now in that space. They've dropped more than 20% in their costs. That's substantial. It's huge, right? And it's these automated tools that, you know, are really going to allow you to do that. Allow you to either, you know, manage remotely or manage revenue remotely or other things. So coming back to where it's about to get really interesting, and we're going to wake you back up. And you're all swimming in the deep end of the pool here. This is a technical meeting. Tomorrow is not this. Tomorrow's more of an event or show. But you guys stick with us. You're gonna see a lot of interesting things here, and I know you're gonna go back and start kicking the tires of what you're using, going, oh, that's next level. So Sneha, the value pricing. Explain to us what you're going to do here on this value pricing.
Yes. So,
He's got it.
Sorry, technical difficulties. Hello. Okay. Before I go to value pricing, I do want to show Travis's current website right now. This is his current website. There are no descriptions, and if Travis did want to add descriptions, he would have to go in and type in those descriptions manually. What value pricing does, and what this grouping which we did, the features and amenities, what they do is they pull that information over to your website. And not just that it pulls that information over here, you can change the layout of the website completely. We give you 2 different layouts.
Can we change Travis's website right now?
Yes. Yes,
We're going to.
We can. So
by the way, we're going to talk about this. This is our CMS section, or our settings section is what we call it. Everything on a single pane of glass. You can't do this anywhere, right? So go ahead, change to whatever you want. Card. Do your card one. You like that one better.
yeah, I do.
Her and I are at war over which one's better, but
So we do have two different views, and I'll show you both of them. This is the grid view. Once I select it, save it, and clear the cache, and I go to Travis's website and refresh it, the layout has changed to grid view. So you can see all the features.
and the mobile version's over here, right? So no longer calling agencies to change views. And not only can you change views in this, but you can change funnels. You can change I call it the selection funnel and the conversion funnel. This is like the selection funnel, select something and then convert. You can mix those up. And shortly, not today, shortly you'll be able to do that by device as well. So you'll say, hey, I want to show desktop users, which is a small percentage of your customers now, about 20-some%. I want to show them this view because it plays really great on desktop, but on mobile, I want to show them the other view we're going to look at in a minute. So, and you do that all yourself for every store. Run them different in every store. And look at your conversion, right? This is not to your domain. This is to your store.
Now, where value pricing kicks in is when I go and select a space that has multiple units in it, or multiple space type that has multiple units in it. What it does is it picks the cheapest, the most expensive, and the one in between and displays it as good, better, best. All of these descriptions that you see are the features that you just set up for your space groups. But additionally on value pricing, you can change the amounts that display in here. You can say, I want my better units, or even, first of all, you can even call this differently. Instead of calling it good, better, best, you can call it, I don't know, economy, standard, premium.
Silver, gold, platinum.
Yeah, silver,
Right.
gold. Yeah, anything that you want.
Whatever you were saying earlier.
And you can also say that all my better units need to be 10% more than my good. And all my best, I want it to be 50% more than my good. And all those settings are right in here. So over here, this is where I control the names. Travis, do you want to call it something else instead of good, better, best?
Yeah, give me a suggestion. This will go live on my website for about 10 seconds. Gold, sapphire, diamond.
Storage outlet is better.
Gold, sapphire, diamond?
Yeah.
One of the things that's really impressive about this is, and I will have to mention this because more and more folks bring value pricing on the website. It used to be that, let me back up. Many companies are asking, should they put the good on the left, then the better in the middle, and the best on the right, or should it be the best on the left? What changes conversion rate? This allows you, if you have multiple stores, even if you only have several stores, you can begin to experiment with different website displays in ways that only the larger operators used to be or can do. So I just want to mention that because what you're seeing right now is incredibly powerful and incredibly state-of-the-art for what companies want to be able to do. It's fabulous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So how much are we going to pump your rates?
So the gold we'll leave at the sell rate. The value tier 2, so that's the sapphire. We'll make it, we're doing percentage?
Yes.
We'll make it 10% more. And value tier 3, 20% more.
Okay. All right. Just refresh the page. Go to my mediums.
I know. Sounds so special, huh? I mean, we've been in such a cave in this industry for so long, right?
So Pam just asked the question if you can change that to dollars instead of percentage. So if I want my sapphire to be $10 more and my diamond to be $20 more.
I don't recall. I believe so. Could
Sneha.
figure that out really quick.
Right now we just have the percentage, but we will bring the dollar.
Can I
in
change
future.
the rounding so that it's not 240.90?
No, we don't have the rounding.
Yes, you
I mean,
yes you
Well,
can.
Karan disagrees.
yeah.
Shocking.
You can go to settings and at the property level you can change so go to settings, revenue management, property settings, and over here you can change this no rounding to whichever one you want to choose.
So
But he
round
wants
it
to-
to the nearest dollar and let's watch it happen.
Nearest full dollar.
Yep.
Save it.
Yeah.
And
Refresh this page. Yeah.
By the way, we're not exactly on world record internet speed here,
Ah.
and you can see how fast this is.
Didn't work.
Didn't change.
didn't-
I told you we'd break something.
But you get it, right?
Right.
This is still beta.
Get a hard reset.
Addition to this,
Yeah, go ahead, Sneha.
addition to this, you can also add filters. So right now on Travis's website, there's no filter. But if he did want to add in filter, you have the ability to add in your filters.
You see this space scoring, guys? That's got implications right now of what it's doing and further, but you can create a custom filter for your market, store, flavor, whatever you want, and you can do this right here. So guys, pick out some filters.
This floor, okay.
Closest to the elevator.
Okay,
And that's it.
that's it? Okay. I'll save it.
So
Filter
now-
by feature.
See that filter by feature just popped up, and it's dynamic. You just click those, you apply it, you can see they're there, and you get those spaces. You can do that on 2 of the 3 systems. You'll be able to do it on all 3, but the 2 new systems that you're going to see today, you can do that with now.
And this is the grid view. And in case you're wondering how the other layout looks like, I'll show you how the list view looks like, which is Lance's favorite. Save.
I call this retail. You'll see that we heavily impersonated Amazon in some of the functionality here. So, and we should show this on Reno too because of all of the settings that are in there, and being able to show the promotions as well.
Now, one other feature that I find cool, and it's definitely unique for the industry, is with my 10 locations, if I find that Dove Mountain is performing better in grid view, but my El Paso stores perform better in the other view,
Right.
I can have different stores on the same domain showing up differently.
Yeah.
And then going
also
back
by-
to what Warren was saying about A/B testing, I can put half of my stores on one view, half of my stores on the other view, and see which performs better. And so this is a level of control that we've never had.
And we'll put into the funnel. It's not in the current PI planning. This will also be device specific. I already got the green light that we can do that because some of these conversions I already believe in my early testing convert better on the mobile, and this is 80% of your business, right? So you may want the conversion piece of your mobile to use one conversion tool, and the selection tool may be different, or optimize it however you want. On a desktop, you got a lot of room to play. You can see a lot of information, and you can shop around pretty quickly. So that'll be another really nice element to this side of the application.
And so you can see here that Sneha picked a 10 by 10 diamond that we just set up 5 minutes ago. And she did me the favor of paying $42 more for it.
Sneha, can we go to Reno really quick and look at
our move-ins?
Yeah, let's look at some recent move-ins.
Oh, okay.
And so this is live data. These are real customers, right? Now, you're going to hear about this in a little bit later because this is a massively powerful tool that I think all of you have heard about. I just don't know how many of you use, but use it because it doesn't exist anywhere. Nobody has this access. The REITs nobody has this access. So you see that little view that I created last night? It says Lance's value. Now I did that this morning at 6 a.m. Like that, Lance's value price look. That's what I called it this morning, right? What that is that's our data viewer in conjunction with what we call tokens. Tokens are extensions of the database that we can bring in to look at information within your space. So you can create reports. You can create all sorts of tools. You can create APIs with this if you want to feed information off. This is a very powerful tool, but it allows you complete customization, and you can save those reports for yourself or for the whole company. There's a lot of things that you can do that, so it becomes a custom report. You can make it the default, so every time you turn it on. But let's look at, I was looking at Beverly. You see Beverly down there? Mm-hmm. So when you click on these reports, you automatically go to what we call a tenant profile, right? And if you open up that setting information piece, we started extending in this beta information directly about that customer on that particular move-in. So Beverly just moved in on January 7th, 2023. The offer rate at the move-in was 202. The set rate was 171 in the system. The sell rate on the rate management pumped it up to 182. The value pumped it up to 202 for an 18.63% increase, $31.86 on that sale. And if we go back to that data viewer, the second we turned this system on, we had these results. That literally it was an instant light switch, and you can see them in these premiums, economies. These are terms we use there, right? Use whatever terms you want, and it's being filtered by that. So we're looking at current rentals, and then we've started to look at some of these tokens, so we can look at the sell rate at move-in, the set rate at move-in, the variance, and how much money you've made. We will sum that stuff up really quickly, so you'll be able to see the complete value, and you'll see the predictive value, right? We know the average occupancy stay at this facility, so we'll give you a predictive lifetime value of that sale when you get it. Because, we want you to see the value in what we're building in real numbers, live, instantly. But this whole custom report, I created that this morning, like while I was feeding my dogs, literally, right? And there are other elements in here, like you see that they come from the website. There's attribution models that plug into here. You can see if they went into autopay, but you can cover over that. Like this is interesting, Warren. You see that? When I said when you set up a facility, you can really see every feature and amenity, right? You hover over that, you can see it, or if you go to the space, you can see there's all over the system. You can see that. Those are all the features and amenity associated with that particular space. So if Warren wanted to go in there and do hocus pocus on the rent side of things, right? Yep. You've got all that data to build from.
And I can tell you that up until seeing this, the only place you could get this kind of report was actually in our system. You couldn't get it in a PMS per se. And I can tell you so that this report itself is, it's going to be very valuable for those who implement good, better, best pricing.
And you're going to hear tokens a lot over the next however long you're with us, because it's such a critical element of what we do. Because these foundational layers, exposing a way to custom build a tool. It was about, I don't know, it was probably about 5 years ago, we brought all of you into a room in this building, right? And some of you may have been there, and we said, look, we need you to come in and tell us what's important in reporting. And do you know that we had an entire ream of paper? No joke. For the operators that came in, we had 500 reports that all of you said, we can't live without, right? If we don't have those we knew we would all be dead by the time we would build 500 reports for you guys. So we just looked at it differently. How do we build a system where if there's a particular view you want, a lot of you are going to BI tools for this very reason, because you can't get what you want out of your PMS. I won't call this a BI. It's a light version of a BI, but most of the data that you want to make decisions on your stores, you can pull in here. So the token is simply either a number in the database that we expose that you custom go in there. So Sneha, go to the columns. And I think we have about, 300 or something tokens in here right now. But if you want to add in anything, lifetime build, length of stay in months and years and days, if you want to dice this up for any view for any reason on any report, not just this isn't limited to this page. It's like anywhere where you see those columns, you have access to that, and you can custom build that. You can drag them around. You can sort them. You can set them whatever you order. You get something you like. Maybe maybe you want to create a collection call list. You save it. Save it for your collection team. They go in there, collection call list, pulls up, boom, there's my delinquent tenants, name, phone number, email address, what they owe, what stage they're in, status, blah, blah, blah. That's a very powerful tool, and it's going to get displayed, but this isn't something that we built to show you this. This is something I built this morning, after getting off the rowing machine, chopping apples for my dog. You guys can do this and look at it however you want. This just happened to be how I put it together. Super, super powerful. Mm-hmm. So the offer is the value tier, right? So in other words, the good, better, best.
That's what's offered to the customer.
Yeah. Set rate, you pick it. Sell rate, the system may push it up based on filters. Offer, next level up. Great job, Sneha.
That's all I had for revenue management.
So that was in the RevMan side or the revenue side. Let me open up my cheat sheet here. Some of the things I want to give you a what's next, and then take questions, and then we're going to move into the operational efficiency side. So some of the things that are next in this is the space scoring. Part of this was actually put in my mind years ago from Warren, because he said, I want you to rate your spaces. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, I have 1,000 spaces. Good. Rate them 1 to 1,000. I was like, how do I do that? And how do I do that consistently? So we're working on a methodology to add values to all the different components of a space that'll create a score for a space that then can be utilized in this value pricing, or it can be handed off to Warren, and he can then use that. Or he may argue with you, right? Now, the values of those things we ultimately want to make flexible in what's coming next, because if you're in a massive snowstorm or one of those, ice storms in the Midwest for like a month, that there's certain elements to your property that may have a higher value. Things around a college may have a higher value at a certain time of the year, or 2 times of the year perhaps, right? So those are things that are coming next in that. And then the variable amenities, which is the ultimate goal of what we've been after for years. And we're right there. And that is you being able to offer things to those good, better, best prices that will create differentiators, no late fee guarantees, extra access hours, discounts on materials, whatever they may be. You'll be able to do that and then create a value to them. Some of them you can create a scoring value or a monetary value or both. So that's what's coming up in there. The promotional side of things. The nice thing about the promotion management is it's a super low bar in the industry. Our promotion management right now is on par with the other pieces of crap. We all suck. And so it's a pretty low bar. They don't do the things we want to do. Well, promotion management 2.0 is going to be next level. The REITs can do this stuff. That's how the REITs come in and carpet bomb you with $40 10 by 10s. And you're like, how do they do that? Well, they do that because they're able to campaign those and manage those spaces differently. We're going to be able to do things like that. We're going to be able to use those promotions on different spaces, not promote the cheap space, promote the big space, promote spaces on length of time vacant, blah, blah, blah. Like we have got such a great whiteboard there that goes into our next PI planning session to bring promotion 2.0 to market. And that'll have a lot of value, and that'll be a fantastic tool for Warren to be able to sort of shop in that cart and apply to where his data scientists think are best. And that gives us that control on the occupancy and the days vacant. So those are next steps. Those, like I said, I'm not telling you about any crazy stuff. These are things that are either in process or you will see this year that will take this up another level. So before we go on, questions in this area?
Matt, I got a quick question. You guys said there's 1,400 stores in Store Local now. How many are running Hummingbird today?
Brad, are you in here? What's that room? What's that number?
How many are running on
Just Hummingbird, not Mariposa.
roughly 170?
170. We feel like we're commercially viable, and we're onboarding portfolios now. We're onboarding whole portfolios right now. Oh. So if you couldn't hear him, that was a 300% growth rate last year. And within that 300%, what percentage of them were new customers, not Store Local members?
Almost 40%.
Yeah, 40% growth outside of Store Local. That's a good sign.
What's the time frame till 1,400 Store Local stores, 1,400 Hummingbird?
I think end of year we're targeting 6 and change on the platform, or 800.
No,
the two.
It would be about another 700 that we anticipate. We can handle more. It's just a matter of how fast we can.
Our underwriting is for just under 700 more this year.
We can handle more.
Yeah. We've been scaling our onboarding